فتح يلا okay. Yesterday we were talking about the speed, and speed, we say that speed is the speed of an object is the distance the object moves per unit of time, and it can be calculated by dividing the distance over time. And there are many, we can express speed in many units like kilometers per hour, miles per hour, or feet per hour. But the SI unit, or in science, the international system of units, the international system of unit for speed is meters per second. This is the most common unit, or it is the unit of speed, meters per second. Okay. Also, yesterday we were talking about the instantaneous speed and how it differs from average speed. The instantaneous speed means the speed at a particular instant in time. يعني the speed of an object in, for example, in 1 second or in 1 minute. Okay? But the most, in science books, we use average speed more than instantaneous speed, because no object can move the whole trip at the same speed. For this reason, the average speed is easier to express the speed of an object. Are you with me?
Yes,
Yes.
teacher.
Okay. Now, today, inshallah, we will learn how to calculate speed from a graph. Today, inshallah, we will learn how to calculate speed from a graph like this. Okay, how can speed calculated from graph like this? Okay, طيب. Let's start. The graph you see on this page is distance versus time graph. Okay, this graph is or shows distance versus time. Okay, and as you know, we need two things to calculate the speed: the distance and time. Okay, look at this graph again. This is, as you know, the x-axis here. This is the x-axis, and this is the y-axis. In the x-axis, there is time in seconds, and the y-axis distance in what? In meters. Okay. For example, this in the x-axis, this is the time: 0 seconds, 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. Okay. And this is the distance: meters, 20 meters, 40 meters, 60 meters. Okay. 80 meters and 100 meters. Here, as you see, for example, at 0 time, and the time is 0, this is before the beginning of the motion. The time 0, the distance is 0. At 1 second, and this the object or the cheetah, this graph describes the movement or the motion of cheetah. As you see, at 1 second, the distance is 20 or more than, maybe 25 or 23 meters in the first second. At second 2, the cheetah traveled or moved 50 meters. At second 3, it is almost 80 meters, and at second 4, it traveled 100 meters. Okay, now the graph you see on this page is distance versus time graph, because it shows the distance and time. Time is shown on the horizontal axis or x-axis, okay, as I mentioned. The distance is shown on the vertical axis, which is y-axis. Did you take this in math?
Yes.
Yes, we're actually taking it right now.
Yes.
هلا
y2
بناخده.
minus y1 over x2 minus
Right.
x1.
A point on the line represents, any point on the line represents the distance an object has traveled during a given time period. Okay, this is very important point. A point, any point on the line represents the distance an object has traveled during a given time period, given time period, as I mentioned. Yeah, for example, this point represents what? Look at this point here. It is 2 seconds. We should first should put the point on the x-axis and then the y-axis. Okay? When you want to represent any point, okay? When you want to represent any point on the line graph, you should put the point on the x-axis first and the point on the y-axis then. سامعيني؟ النت شوي علق عندي.
Yes, yes.
أستاذ.
طيب.
لا ما بيعلق.
طيب خلص، نو كنت بدي احكي على الوايت بورد، مش مشكلة. اوكي. Any point on the line graph is represented by two x and y, like this. يعني for example, if you see any point 2 and 5, this means that this is on the x-axis and this is on the y-axis. Okay. For example, this point 2, that means at second 2, the distance is what? 50 meters.
kilometers.
At second 2, distance is 50 meters. Okay.
يعني 50 meters per 2 seconds.
And wait, هسه إن شاء الله بنحكي. A point on the line represents distance an object has traveled during a given time period. The x value of the point is time, of course, and the y value is the distance. The x value on this graph is the time, and the y value is the distance. The angle of a line on a graph is called slope. Did you take slope on math? In math? طيب.
We are taking
Yes.
the slope now.
Yes, we're taking it.
طيب, so the angle of a line on a graph is called the slope. The slope tells you how one variable changes in relation to other variable. Okay, so the slope tell us how one variable changes in relation to other variable in the graph. يعني for example, in this graph, the slope tell us how the distance, one variable, the distance changes in relation to time. Okay, so the slope of any graph tell us how one variable changes in relation to another variable. In this example, or in this page, the slope tell us how the distance changes in relation to time. Okay, now how can we calculate the slope? We will see now how can we calculate the slope. Okay, in other words, slope tells you the rate of change, Any slope tell us the rate of change. We can, by the way, we can represent chemical reactions by using these graphs to tell us the rate of change of a chemical reaction. Also, we can use this graph to tell us the rate of change, the rate, how the distance change in relation to time, okay? Type. So you can calculate the slope of a line by dividing the rise by the run, okay? Rise, the slope can be calculated by dividing rise over run, okay? What is the rise and what is the run? The rise,
ليش بيعلق عندي مش عارف.
طيب مش مشكلة. What is the rise? It is the vertical difference between any 2 points on the line. Notice, please. Rise is the vertical difference between any 2 points.
هذا الرايز اللي هو الواي
Yes.
الرن اللي هو
Okay.
الاكس.
طلعوا كيف. How can you find the rise? You can simply the rise. How can the rise be calculated? شوي بيعلق شوي نت. Rise is the difference between 2 points in the vertical line. Like you can calculate it y2 minus what? y1.
y over x2 minus x1.
And the run is excellent. It is x2
x2 minus x.
exactly. x2 خلينا نعملهم capitalized احسن. هو doesn't matter يعني بس y2 minus y1 the rise, and the run is x2 minus what? Is it understood? طيب.
Yep.
So you divide the rise over the run. Let's take let's back to the line, to the graph. Here, how can we calculate the slope in this example? Okay, I want to choose the first, the rise. We must choose 2 points on the vertical line. I want to choose, for example, 150. Y2 is 100 and y1 is 50. Understood? y1 is
Yes.
100 and
Understood.
y2 is 50. طيب. Slope equals rise over what?
Over run.
Run. Okay, the rise equals y2
Minus y1 over
minus y1 over
x2.
the run, which is x2.
x2 minus x1.
Excellent. Now, y2 we choose what? 100 minus 50. Okay, we should now choose what is x2 when it is 100. Understood? What is x2 when it is 100? It is 4. 4, okay? So it is 4 minus, what is x1? What is x1 when it is y1?
2.
2, yes, 2. So it is 4 minus 2. Now, what is 100 minus 50 is 50
Over 2.
over
Fraction.
2, which is equal to what?
25.
25. This is the
25?
slope, and this is, in this graph, it is the average speed. So the average speed is 25 meters per second. By measuring or by calculating the slope, we calculate the average speed. طيب. Here, look here again. The rise, please highlight it, is the vertical difference between any 2 points on the line, and the run is the horizontal difference between the same 2 points. Please, it's very important point. Yani if you choose 2 when you calculate the rise, you choose 2 points on the vertical. Okay, is the vertical difference between any 2 points on the line. When the run is the horizontal difference between the same 2 points. Okay, yeah, for example, if let me choose another 2 points on the vertical line, I will choose 80 and 40. 80 and 40. Here I must choose what is x2 when it is 80. What is x2 when it is 80? It is almost 3 seconds. Okay. When it is 40, it is 1.5 seconds.
1.5.
By the way, when you calculate the slope, if you choose any 2 points, it must give you the same answer.
Sir.
Okay?
Okay.
طيب. Is it understood? Is it clear?
Yes.
طيب.
Yes.
Yalla, let's take, okay, before taking the example, the points in the graph below show a rise of 50 meters and a run of 2 seconds, okay? To find the slope, okay, the points in the graph below show a rise of 50 meters here and a run of what? 2 meters. طيب, okay. To find the slope, divide 50 meters by 2 seconds. The slope is 25 meters per second. What do you notice about the units of slope? On a distance versus time graph, the units of the slope of the line are the same as the units of speed, meters per second, because the speed is the rate that the distance changes in relation to time. So the slope of a distance versus time graph represents speeds. Represents speed, as I told you. In this graph, the line, this graph represents the speed because it is distance over time. Okay. So it is in meters per second. Okay, look at this important point. The steeper the slope is, the greater the speed. Okay, the steeper, as you see, the slope, the greater the speed. A constant slope represents motion in a constant speed. Yani if the slope is like this, suppose that the slope is like this. What does this mean?
It's
It's not
constant.
changing.
Yes, constant speed. But what is if the graph is steeper like this?
It
The speed is
changes.
increasing.
changes, or the speed is the more the speed is the greater the
Increasing.
speed. طيب, what if the graph like this?
Decreasing.
بعدني ما رسمتها.
It's decreasing.
Yes, that the object is
The
slowing.
speed will decrease.
Yes, this object is slowing down. Okay, here the speed is constant, no change in speed. Here, the speed or the greater, the steeper the slope, the greater the speed. Okay, طيب. So distance versus time graph. Let's take solve this exercise or do this exercise. طيب, read the question, Leif.
The math toolbox.
أيوة.
Okay. Mark 2 new points on the line. Use these points to calculate the slope.
Brother, please louder.
Mark 2 new points on the line. Use
لا,
these
here,
points
here.
to
Read
calculate
from
the
here.
Okay. The cheetah in this paragraph is running at a constant speed. The graph shows the distance the cheetah moves and the time it takes the cheetah to move that distance.
يلا, the first one.
Mark 2 new points on the line. Use these points to calculate the slope.
يلا.
هذا السلوب أصلا بيطلع اسمه 50 over 2.
Yes.
يعني
yes.
25.
هو بس
25.
خلينا نعمل زي ما بده. Mark two new points غير هاي. يعني
آخر هاي.
new points, 2 new points on the line. Use these photos.
أستاذ
Points, sorry.
أتوقع راح يظلوا نفس الإشي مش راح
اوكي
يختلف.
طيب احنا I know
طيب.
بس احنا خلينا بالله choose any 2 points. اقول لك خلينا انا let me choose. For example, I want to choose 25 meters here. خلينا نشوف نحلها. slope خلينا نختار 25 meters. اوكي لما تكون 25 meters شو بتكون السكند؟
1.
Yes, 1 second. Right, please. Okay. Which is equal to what here? 25 meters per second. يعني هاي هيك معناها. Okay. This point, this is the first point. As you see, when the distance is 25 meters, sorry, here, when the distance is 25, the time is 1 second. Okay. And the second point, let me choose
50 with 2.
100, for example. 100 meters. شو بتكون التايم؟
4 seconds.
Yes. 4 seconds. وهون شو بتساوي؟ Which is equal to
25 per second.
25 meters per second. This is the first part of the question. Okay? طيب. Notice that when you choose any 2 points, it will equal the same thing. 25 meters per second, 25 meters per second. Done? طيب. What is the average speed of the cheetah?
25 meters per second.
Exactly. The average speed of the cheetah is 25 meters per second. Okay, طيب. خلينا نشوف number 3. Read it, Nasreen.
Number 3 ولا 2
The graph of a straight line that goes through the origin can be represented by the equation y equals mx. This equation describes the relationship between the two variables x and y. In this equation, m represents the constant slope of the line. Use this equation to determine the distance the cheetah traveled in 4 seconds.
طيب خلينا can you do this؟ كحدا بيقدر يعملها؟
Yeah.
طيب يلا نسرين استني. What is, look here, خليني بس explain. The graph of straight line, this graph goes through the origin. This is the origin, represented by the equation y equals mx. y okay.
أنا حصة ماث ماني مسافر.
Okay, mx. What is the meaning of m?
Linear. M is the slope.
Yes, this equation describes the relationship between the two variables x and y. In this equation, m is represents the constant slope of the line, which is the slope the 25. قديش طلع معنا؟ 25. Use this equation to determine the distance. يعني the distance is ايش؟ y. We need y when the cheetah traveled in 4 seconds. So x is what? So نسرين يلا. What should we do? Y equals how much?
4x.
25
Oh, 25x.
multiplied by what? X, which
4.
is
4.
4 seconds, which is equal to what? 100.
100.
Now, what should we? What is the unit here?
Meters.
Meters. Just. خلينا نعيدها كمان مرة. معلش. جزء ما فهمتوها. This equation for this straight line, y equals m x. Y is the distance, x is the time, m is the what? the constant or the slope. Okay, m represents the constant slope of the line, and as you know the slope is the same as the average speed 25. مش طلعناها هون. Okay, do you forget? So here use this equation to determine the distance, which is y. The cheetah traveled in 4 seconds. يعني we should, instead of y equals m, which is 25, okay, 25 meter. خلينا نكتبها هون أحسن. Y equals m times x. Okay, y, the distance, equals m is 25 meters per second multiplied by x, which is at unit or a second for. Okay, this equals what? 100 meters. Okay,
Second, yes.
because
4
this
seconds.
second and second cancel each other, so it is 100 meters. يعني on another word, he asks you what is the distance when the time at 4 seconds. What is the distance at second 4?
أستاذ ما بنقدر بس نطلع من الجراف.
Yes, you can of course, but you can also calculate it in another way. طيب, do you have any questions?
No.
طيب, this is how to calculate the speed using a graph. طيب, inshallah, now we have only less than 10 minutes. We are going to talk about another subject or another topic, velocity. By the way, velocity is related to speed, but of course they are different. يعني لو حكينا هسه أنا لو جيت سألتني بالعربي إيش يعني speed؟ بقول لك سرعة. طب velocity برضه سرعة. But they are different. There is something different, as we will see inshallah. طيب. To describe an object's motion, you also need to know its direction. So simply, I want to give you يعني like a summary. Speed. Can anyone guess what is the difference between speed and velocity? يعني now أنا حكيت شوي. مين بيقدر يقول لي شو الفرق بين speed والvelocity? What is the difference? ما تخافوا من الخطأ. Can anyone? طيب.
نعم أستاذ، كنت بسأل شغلة.
الصوت راح يعني ولا كيف؟
لا أنا كنت مشغول بشغلة يا أستاذ. إيش السؤال والله؟
What is the difference between speed and velocity?
Speed is the...
طيب. Velocity means speed
at which with a given direction.
With direction. يعني velocity means, for example, 90 meters per second to the left. Speed, just number, 90 meters per second. Without direction. طيب, do you remember this word? حكيت لكم عنها قبل كم يوم. Which one of them is a vector? Velocity only is a vector. Means it's a quantity plus direction. Speed is not a vector. Okay? طيب. So describing velocity, to describe an object's motion, you also need to know its direction. The direction is very important. For example, suppose you hear that thunderstorm is traveling at a speed of what? 25 kilometers per hour. شو يعني thunderstorm تعرفوا؟
It's like a storm, but with thunder.
Yes. So, should you prepare for the storm? Yeah, it depends on the direction of the thunderstorm. Yes, it's
We should not
thunderstorm.
prepare.
نعم.
Embrace your fate.
طيب. So, should you prepare for the storm? That depends on the direction in which the storm is moving. If it is not moving to your direction, so you don't need to prepare yourself. If it is traveling toward you, you might want to take cover. The speed at which an object travels in a given direction is called velocity. So the speed at which an object travels in a given direction is called velocity. Highlight it, please. Okay, so velocity is the speed at which an object travels in a given direction. Right. You know the velocity of a storm when you know that it is moving 25 kilometers per hour eastward. Okay, look here, please. This is, without the direction, it is only speed. Okay, if it is 25 kilometers per hour without direction, so it is a speed. But when we add the direction, now it is velocity. So velocity means speed plus direction. That's it. Velocity is a speed plus direction equals speed plus direction. Okay, طيب. So for example 40 kilometers per hour to the north. This is an example of a velocity. طيب. Okay, in certain situations describing the velocity of moving objects is important. Okay, why we care about, or why we care about velocity? Because in many situations it is important to please highlight it. In certain situations describing the velocity of moving objects is important. Example, air traffic, for example, controllers must keep close track of the velocities of aircrafts. It's very important. These velocities change as airplanes move overhead and on the runways. An error in determining a velocity either in speed or in direction could lead to collision. So in airports or in airplanes, in aircrafts, it's very important to determine it's not only important to determine the velocity, the speed of air. We need also the velocity of air, its speed and its direction. Okay, so the controllers of aircrafts need to determine the velocity. Is it clear? That's everything about speed and velocity. Inshallah, on next Sunday, we are going to talk about acceleration. مين بيعرف شو اسمه بالعربي acceleration؟
تسارع.
ايش هو؟
تسارع.
Exactly, yes.
أستاذ أو pace أو إشي زي هيك.
لا التسارع بالضبط اسمه التسارع.
To pace, yes.
طيب اوكي. شو عندنا هون reading check. طيب هذا السؤال خلينا نشوف هذا السؤال. How can understanding velocity help to prevent a mid-air collision? شو يعني mid-air collision?
Like two planes colliding to each other.
Yes, exactly. Mid-air collision, collisions that happen on air between two planes, for example. How it is important, or how can understanding velocity help to prevent a mid-air collision? Can anyone answer this question?
أستاذ الشاشة سوداء بدي أطلع وأرجع أفوت. أوكي.
طيب ماشي.
Okay.
يلا who can answer this question?
We could prevent areas that has a high percentage for collision to drop in, maybe.
يعني شباب, simply we can by knowing the velocity of airplanes. Velocity means their speed and their direction. We know if they are heading toward each other. صح؟ if they are heading toward another or
أنا
not.
حكيت هيك يعني we can expect direction.
Yes, thank you, Leith. That's right. So we can, by knowing the velocity, we can know their direction and their speed. So we can avoid, we can know if they are heading toward each other or not. So we can avoid the accidents or mid-air collisions. طيب, I will send you the answer for this question now after the end of the meeting. طيب, goodbye. يعطيكم العافية.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.